Before we get started, I want to thank the Art Association and Museum for allowing us to put this together, especially Chris McCarthy, Seth Abramson, Leslie, of course, and Jim Zimmerman, who did the beautiful installation once we laid it all out. I think we're really lucky to be in this community, to have such an incredible institution. It started out as an art association, but then when they became a museum, they had to, really meet certain standards. And the level of professionalism that I think that we experienced when we were working with this show, it's just been great. So it's been really gratifying. But I also want to thank my good friend and colleague, Michael, for allowing me to roam through years and years of his work and come up with this really wonderful exhibition. And thank you all for coming tonight. And so wanted to start out, because as Leslie briefly mentioned, Michael has had a really deep career in architecture. And I'm just wondering, as we look at the title of the show, The Transformation of Line, which of course architects deal with from the very beginning, how that career and how you feel about that career as you look at this work and as you started working and dealing with the figure and drawing and painting. Have you had the opportunity to reflect back on that career and how and what it has done to inform the work?
I've got to think about that one. I guess I really always felt comfortable with drawing to begin with, and I really wanted to paint. I never knew how. Architecture was a kind of a stopgap measure. My mother wanted me to be a dentist. Greek immigrants in Canada, and obviously wanting security, etc. And so I said, my art teacher said, no, this man's an artist, this young man is an artist. And so I went into architecture in order to avoid teeth. But anyhow, and I loved architecture, etc. But when I sold my firm to the people in the office back in 2000, I thought, I just want to get back to freehand drawing, and it just evolved. It just started to happen. I think I've always wanted to do figures, and can you hear me? Incidentally, is this working? And I think it got more and more. I didn't know how to paint at all. I didn't know how to do. I felt very handicapped not knowing the tools, not having the tools. But I just winged it, really. And of course, I took a workshop with Bert at the Fine Arts Work Center with a couple of other people here in Provincetown, whom I admire. And I learned so much. I learned that, as a matter of fact, I learned so much from my fellow students in the workshops, almost as much as I did from the people who gave the workshops, which I found pretty fascinating. They were very helpful to me, and it was a wonderful sharing experience that was really helpful. But anyway, and it just went on from there, I think. As an architect, one has a feeling for composition and form and all of that. Remember, when I had an architectural office, it was with no computers, it was with a straight edge and a set square, etc., etc. So I love the freedom of having my hand just wander over a drawing, over a piece of paper, over there. It was just fabulous. And because I love making mistakes, when you're doing an architectural drawing, you can't. Everything has to be clean and it's erased, and there's powder on your desk to make sure that it's perfect, etc. This way, there's a mess of water, there's a mess of color on it. It becomes exciting, and I found it really a great release. And I guess that's where it all, if that answers your question.
Extremely well.
Okay, good.
And I would say one of the things that kind of binds you and I together is the architectural education
That's right,
that we both
yeah.
went through, even though I followed you. the Bauhaus education,
Right.
that very rigid, formal architectural education that has lots of rules in terms of how you structure composition and so forth. And so that whole notion of being able to be free, why did you feel that you wanted to focus on the figure? Was there any particular compulsion?
I guess no, I don't know. I guess only, maybe I was horny. Who knows? I don't know. The thing is, it's just, I've always been interested in the figure. I mean, people are the most fascinating, they're wonderful. I mean, the human form, I mean, it's just astonishing. There's such a variety to begin with. I mean, the big and the thin and the scrawny and the whatever, the beautiful. I don't like the beautiful bodies, frankly, because it's a bitch to I mean, because what happens is you try to make them as perfect as they are, but they're not perfect, and then the drawing comes out to be a mess. Whereas if it's a normal body, which is, that is to say, of whatever size or shape or color or thing, it's so wonderful because they're just sitting there being natural, and then your hand just flows automatically. I think it's really no, I love doing the figures. I would never do anything. Landscapes I find amazingly boring in a way. I mean, if I did a tree here, does it matter? No one cares if the tree's on the left or on the right or whatever. And I'm up to here with sunset, aren't we? Anyway, or sunrise. But a human body is just amazing, I think.
So, given that, how did you start? What did you do?
I guess I started taking your workshop. And then you pushed me along, and no, it was great. It was the.
But you practiced a lot. In other words, you drew here.
I drew here. Oh yes, that's great. And PAAM, yes, on Tuesdays and Thursdays. No, that's fabulous. That's the best bargain in the world. For 2 hours for $10 or $9 if you're a member. It's just wonderful, and no, you can just and you learn, as I said, you learn from the people around you who are drawing. It's just wonderful. No, it's
so. I mean, that practice. I mean, the thing is, as you know, you look around the exhibition and you see what you have done with and to the figure. One of the things that we talked about when we were going through all the work was. One of the things that I wanted to try to do was establish the fact that you could really handle the notion of being able to draw the figure and to present the figure accurately in relationship to proportion and so forth, so that you could then do with it what you wanted to do.
Kind of in a way, but I was really more interested. I was not very perfectly technically gifted to draw the figure like a Da Vinci or whatever. I was really, and somewhere I read or someone told me, and I don't remember exactly where, draw what the model is doing. The model is a catalyst. Draw what the model is doing. Express how you feel about what the model is doing. And I find that with any model that I have in front of me, we have a certain relationship. And it's a kind of, if the way they're sitting in a nice, if they're a good model, they're sitting in a nice, relaxed way. It's beautiful. There are beautiful lines everywhere. The back, the arm, the fingers, the legs, the butt, the breasts, whatever. It's just wonderful. I mean, you want to share that remarkable beauty on paper, and I find that, and I'm so affected that if it's a big burly guy, I'll use a thick, heavy charcoal or something. If it's a thin fellow or girl or whatever woman, I'll make it ephemeral. You do a gentle line, and sometimes it just fades away, and you like that at the same time. So it's a very personal relationship with drawing, I think, with a model. And I try to push that. I have given a couple of workshops, and that's what I try to impress on the people who are taking it, because it's a very special situation. You have somebody who's stark naked in front of you, for heaven's sakes, and you want to express how you feel about that. They're doing something. I mean, would you take your clothes off in front of 40 people or 20 people? I wouldn't. I'd scare the hell out of them, you know. But the thing is, so you want to, so you respect that, and you want to express how beautiful they are. I think that's very important.
Well, the other side of this wall, which we put up a lot of your gesture drawings, some of them were like 30-second drawings, some of them were 2-minute drawings, some were 5, and what we tried to pick out a progression to show that kind of spontaneity of feeling. I mean, so it's a real emotional experience for you,
I think it
no
is.
matter how long it takes. So when you were doing some of these larger drawings, like the large piece here or the one over here, where you're really starting to, let's say, paint more or use more shape, let's say, rather than line. When you started that kind of process and you started moving into painting, what were the kind of things that you felt you were confronting that was different from the gestural drawings and the quick kind of emotional responses to those?
Bert, I really didn't know, I've got to say. In other words, with this large drawing called Memory, there are 3 panels, and I started with the panel on the left, and it was, I thought, well, I just want to do a big drawing, and let me try this thing. And I did it, and I hung it up, and I thought, well, let's see, let me throw some color, and I just, and then it sat for a while, and then I thought, you know, it's lonely, there's a story going around here somewhere, and I don't know what the story is, so let me add another panel. So I added another panel, and it just kind of developed in time, and I threw some paint on it. Somehow the paint was not, it was acrylic, and I was just getting into acrylic at the time, and I'm not very happy with it, but anyway, I tried it, and I didn't really know anything about acrylic. I kept thinning the acrylic with water, and it got very pale and very light, but I still kept on drawing, so I added another panel, and then I let it sit, and I thought for a long time it wasn't finished, and it just kind of developed, and then I thought, well, this is not finished, and I don't know where it's going. The first panel, that work has kind of a history. The first one's, I guess, around 5 years old, and then or 3 or 4 years old, and then the other one's newer, and then I thought, well, let me just leave it. It just develops in a while, and then someone said, gosh, there's a story here, and I began to think about it, and I thought, holy smoke, there is. And a lot of it's happening intuitively, and I don't know, somehow you need help from someone else viewing it in a way, and then you get more enthusiastic about it, and then you add and you build on it and whatever, and then it happens, and then you hang it up on the wall, and then you say, well, I guess it's finished, but I guess it is, and you don't really know until.
Well, I like the expression, just throw some color at it, and I'm just wondering your color choices.
I'm lazy. I'm very lazy. It's whatever's on my palette, you know. And it's because I use a lot of it, and I use a very big brush. And frankly, very often I do throw it up because I don't know what's happening. I'm throwing it on the wall, and I'm saying, gee, let me see how that works. And if it works, well, I'll take it off. You take a big cloth and you drag it off and whatever.
So you are making some decisions somewhere, even after you've thrown it.
That's true. That's true.
Right.
But
it's not like you're using a color chart.
No, that's correct. No, Ollie, no, not. Right. As a matter of fact, who was it? It was somebody. I think it was Dmitri Hadzi came to the studio once, and I had a color wheel there, and he said, throw that away, throw that away. And I thought, wow. And of course I did, because he was a kind of sculptural god. So anyway, I did. But it was, and I never use a color wheel. It's a lot of my stuff is strictly intuition, you know. I think it just.
Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, you see where. I try a lot of things. I try. I mean, sticking things on glue with tape and whatever, and covering things with the acetate. I like testing things. I saw somebody taking. I love some of those works when I see fellow students in the past They've taken sandpaper on the paper. I love that. Oh, God, that was so impressive. I love the investigation. Like maybe that comes out of architectural training. I don't know, but I love that investigation with the line, with the textures, with the. It's very tactile. Tactile is the right word, I guess. Isn't it?
Well, both processes, architecture, drawing, painting, are exploratory.
Yeah, that's exactly.
And so,
and I love doing that.
Yeah.
You know, there's just
so
it gets
the
exciting.
connection from your training and from your life as an architect
Right.
is very strong. It's very definite, but maybe you haven't just framed it in that way.
I guess
since.
not,
But
yeah.
as you're saying, I mean, it's incredibly relevant in terms of how you investigate all of this, whether it's with material or color or and obviously the subject matter. It's almost the same in the sense in terms of architecture. You're creating a building, you're creating space, structure. Here, your motif is the human figure.
True, and I guess part of the thing is why I just remember, we used to work on buildings, and it took me, by the time when you first started working on the plan and the elevations and blah, 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 and your meetings with the client, etc. I just remembered it took maybe 5 years for this project to be completed. Here, this is so satisfying that I can just, I do this thing in the morning or in the afternoon, and I don't know if it's done or not, but it's not 5 years. Maybe it's the same day, maybe not. This painting was done in maybe an hour or two. I don't know why. It just came in a flurry of activity, and then I felt, when it was done, I felt it was done.
Right.
And that was great. It was cocktail time, so perfect.
So do you often go back in after something that's immediate?
I do. No, because you only know, you know when it's finished. Sometimes you don't. That one I never knew when it was finished. Sometimes you know exactly when it's finished. Sometimes you really don't, and you have to go look at it the next morning, because you might feel very enthusiastic or you might feel not very enthusiastic, and the next day you look at it and say, "Oh, it wasn't so bad as I thought it was," or something. I could say, just like, frankly, whenever I've told my students today, I was doing a workshop, in an architectural thing, you're beating your brains out trying to work out this goddamn plan, and it's just not working, etc., etc. And what happen? Walk away, go home, come back the next morning, ding, it's resolved. You know exactly, things come into place. You're so tight at the same when you're doing that thing.
So you're letting your mind
loose up and freshen up,
So, given all that, in terms of your history, in terms of what you've been doing, what role, if any, has being in Provincetown, coming to this community?
Oh, great.
What has that done?
Oh, no, fabulous. No, this is a great town. Great. My partner and I, we've been here full time in maybe 12, 13 years, full time, though we've been here since 1980. We've owned property since 1980. But, as my partner has said, in all the years, in the 40 years or so that we were in Boston, granted we were working 9 to 5, traveling, work, etc., etc. In the short time that we were here, we really have more people that we really love and connect with than in 40 years in Boston,
Right.
which is pretty amazing.
Well, it's
Great people here.
Yeah, well, it's understandable. It's
Yeah.
understandable. It's very, as we stated in the beginning, it's a very special place, a very meaningful place. I know I'm probably stepping into a minefield here, but I'm wondering,
We've already been there.
this partner of yours, how has the fact that he is a photographer and has been most of all of his life, how has that relationship in terms of two artists living together?
Oh, different. No, it's totally different, really. We connect with each other. He looks at my work and tells me what he thinks of it. I look at his work and he asks me what I think of it. And then, we support each other.
Sure.
really a lot, so that's very nice. And we talk about it too, and that's very, very nice.
Well, I'm just wondering, I mean,
He's glowering at me.
let him glower. Let him glower.
Yeah.
I'm just curious, though, I mean, in the sense that, since I can kind of maybe wear two hats, since I have a degree in photography and a degree in architecture. I know I'm really straddling here,
yes.
but, the whole notion of being able to look through the camera, compose through the rectangle or the square, whichever format of it, and create composition, and your compositional selections and the way that you work. I'm just curious if that has become a part of the discussion when you're looking at work and talking about.
I don't know, not really, not when we discuss it, when we talk about it, no, not really. I think he, as a photographer, he's been a photographer all his life.
Right.
I'm a newbie, what is it, 18, 20, not even 20 years. I'm still finding my roots, finding what I really want to do. But I guess I'm still experimenting. I still want to push and want to explore. Already I have thousands of drawings. What am I going to do with them? I'm going to cut them up and put them all together and see how they all fit. There's a whole new kind of way maybe of doing things.
Sure.
Just to see what happens. But I think I'm very excited about new ways of exploring, again, the figure. Now, I really love abstract work. I always feel, however, whatever abstract work is, it's got to come from something. In my case, it has to come from the figure. Wherever you see any, I think in a way, have to be able to perceive the figure in any of my abstract work that I might be doing or going towards.
Well, I'm looking at this right here next to that drawing, and it's one of the reasons we put that there.
That's right, yeah.
Because that's probably one of the most farthest out,
no question,
of some of the paintings.
right.
And I'm wondering, that just came out of your process and you decided, okay,
I'm
stopping
that, yeah.
But is that something more, or is there something more that you feel can still be gained by pushing that particular direction?
Maybe, I don't really know.
Right.
That was when I was really pushing, I was really learning my craft, or whatever it's called at that time. And I think what I was really doing, right now I'm more involved with lines as well as paint.
Because you brought them back into the paintings with the
That's right.
with the acetate
That's
and
right.
with drawing back on top of it.
Right. And that was before, and I was searching for whatever, and obviously, I hope one perceives it as a figure. It was a figure. It's, to my mind, it still is a figure. But it's, I think it's, I want to do more. That shows more about, I guess I'm more interested in form, so I think that I prefer the ones in the back better than this one.
Because the form here is more open.
That's correct. That's
and
right.
less defined.
That's right. This is more about the paint and the color and everything, which I think is great. But I like the you know something? I think those have more passion than this one.
Yeah.
And I think passion is something that I think is very, very important. I think if I see, for instance, when I see there's a landscape, I never thought landscape was very passionate until I found there's a German expressionist. He was an architect, as a matter of fact. And I'm going to forget his name.
Was it Kirchner, was it?
No, it wasn't Kirchner, part of the Kirchner group. And it was, anyway, I've forgotten his name right now, but he has, and I showed it to the boys, to the people, the group, the boys and girls in my workshop today. He did the most exciting landscapes. I've never found landscapes exciting, but he did the most exciting landscapes, and I was thrilled. I mean, you can tell it was an abstract, but you could tell it was a landscape. That's the kind of work I want to do. Anyway, so, and I think that's The kind of, and he used a paint, only paint. He didn't use lines and things.
Right.
But I think I'm probably going to pursue that. We'll see where it goes. I don't know. I might change even from then.
Well,
Excuse me.
to leave yourself open to it,
Yeah.
I think that's what you want to do, right?
Yeah. So, anyway.
But these are the ones that you're incorporating acetate, bringing the line back into
Into the
these
oil
large
paint,
form.
right.
Those are the ones that are the quote-unquote, the most recent
That's correct.
investigation.
That's correct.
Right.
Yeah, that's correct.
Are you still operating, still doing that in the studio now, since we've had the opportunity to put the show up,
I haven't
almost a
painted
month
since,
ago?
no, I haven't. The last month has been kind of a little pretty hectic, but I've had to do some traveling and things. I really haven't been to the studio yet, working on the studio, but I'll see, we'll see. But I still have some stuff I've started and I want to pursue, and I've got a lot of empty canvases I really want to work on.
So what has this experience, rummaging through everything you've done,
Pretty
that
scary.
we've done for, that we spent the last, year and a half going through, and then putting it up here and talking to people, having the opening, having it here at the Art Association. What do you think what has it felt like? What has it done to your head, do you think? Do you have any?
Mind-boggling. I'm surprised. I mean, it looks pretty good in some cases. I've got to say. I'm saying, and things you don't know. You put the stuff up, you think it's pretty good. Somebody think it's really not very good. But anyway, you put it up and whatever. And then you get other people saying, "Holy smoke! I mean, gosh, that's pretty cool." So I kind of like it. I don't mind it. And there's been, I gather, there's been a pretty positive response.
Yeah.
So that was nice. It pushes me to do more,
Right.
and that's exciting. I've got to say, because I want to. I've got so many things in the back of my head there that it's got to come out, and so it's
Excellent.
yeah. So,
That's excellent.
yeah.
I'm wondering whether we could, if anyone has any particular questions that they would like to throw at Michael.
Oh yeah, sure.
You don't have to throw them at me. You can throw them like paint.
Yeah, Richard.
Michael, you were talking about the relationship initially of architecture, and I always think of architecture in terms of opportunities and constraints. How would you translate that to what you're working with? I mean, you see opportunities and you see constraints at the same time, I'm assuming.
I don't quite get your question exactly.
Well, when we always think of in architecture, the more opportunities, the more constraints we have, the better building, perhaps. You've got constraints of a flat canvas.
Oh no, no constraints with it. No, big difference. The thing is, with architecture, we have to deal with the client, and it's very important to connect with the client. That's theme number one, I think, for them to understand the kind of work you do, and then you really have a dialogue together, and then something really nice happens. Gosh, that's such hard work. That doesn't compare to the hard work of just trying to throw paint on canvas or something, or drawing or whatever. Because then, besides that relationship, working on that relationship, I mean, you want to like the client, but sometimes you don't like the client. They're asking things that you really don't really like to do, but you need the money or something you have to pay, whatever. And so you make compromises. This is so terrific. I mean, frankly, I'm not here to sell paintings or anything. I'm not here to sell. I just want to do my work, and I just want, and if you like it, fine. If you don't like it, fine, But so I think there's a difference there. However, the training, and I agree very much, and I think Bert would agree with me here, the training that we received as architects have something to do with the way we compose on the canvas or on a sheet of paper or whatever, and the heaviness or the blackness or the line or whatever. I think that it's all related. It's all art. I mean, somehow it's back in here. We don't know where it is, but it comes out, like it or not.
The basic design curriculum.
I guess.
I've lived with we've been together 56 years, and I remember I used to go down to the basement where he had his firm first architectural firm there. And I used to watch him drawing clapboards with a pencil and a ruler, okay?
Yeah.
And now they're doing it with computers, okay?
Yeah.
And he had such a skill and a freedom with the pencil. And I think painting liberated him. You know, when architecture when things began to be done with CAD and everything went computer, this was a kind of a liberation, the next step, to start drawing figures.
Sure.
And then it went from drawing to paintings, and then it went from sort of semi-realism, but it went to abstraction. And now he is where he is, you know, but it was a process, and it's been going on. I mean, how long? How many years has, you know, have you been doing this? You know, and now he's, I think, reached a level, but I don't, you know, he's going to go from here. I'm sure he paints and draws all the time. And not only that, one thing I admire about him is that, you know, we share a studio, and I look over there and I see the figures, the models who come in, and he's never had beautiful, perfect bodies, you know, like the perfect female body, the perfect male body. I looked over there one day, and there was this man who looked like he'd just come out of a concentration camp. I think he likes to paint real, individual human beings, you know, and he treats them individually. He doesn't treat them as just sort of models. Okay?
Well, there is a tradition of that, that's for sure. I mean, you could think of Freud, you know,
That's right.
what he did with the figure and what he has done with figure, and many, many others, for sure. And you talked about that earlier.
But I'm big on Sheila.
Yeah, right.
And,
And are there particular artists you continue to look at on a regular basis?
oh yeah,
you know?
Jenny Saville, English painter,
Right.
who does the big, I found her stuff remarkable, really. I'm very, and Egon Schiele, I always go back and I'm always finding new things. I don't want to say it's easy, I'm fascinated by that. And you know, Francis Bacon really fascinates me, and somehow I find myself more and more interested in him, and I don't know why, but anyway.
Well, the thing that I've always admired about Bacon is he's an incredible mark maker.
Yes.
If you look at his paintings and examine them closely, the way he handles the brush, and he talked openly about throwing paint.
Oh, did he?
And if you look at some of his paintings, he'll get to a particular point and he'll just throw paint on the canvas, and then he'll have to do something with it. He gets to a point where he thinks it's too tight or too this or too that, and he just flings a pot of paint. And if you look at some of his canvases, you'll see those.
I see that. No,
and then he integrates them somehow, and they make sense. But when you look at how he works on raw canvas, and how he drags the brush, and how the brush breaks the markup, creates a tone and a value and a shape, I mean, I think he was a remarkable mark maker. And I think that's one of the things that I've loved about your work, is that the language of line that you began with just with pencil and charcoal, and what it's progressed into via drawing, charcoal, ink, watercolor, oil paint, acrylic. I think that you've stretched that along with stretching the figure. And I think that's very exciting, that process and that experimentation that you've done. So I think there's, you know, I can understand why you would gravitate to, you know, to
But I
that.
find his work very emotional. I mean, there's emotion and everything. You either you hate the work, or you love. You get the impression that he hated it or loved it or whatever, but it's there. I mean, it's right in your face.
Well, the fact that he drank champagne every day of his life.
Well, that's a good. Maybe that's something I should get.
He slept all day till like 12 or 1, and then worked all night.
Oh,
and
really? Okay.
Drank champagne, gambled.
Ooh.
And yeah, his biographies are extraordinary.
I should really check them.
Yeah, I mean, they are. He lived an extraordinary life, for sure. But he made some extraordinary work, and he talked about never drawing. He didn't draw, or at least he said he didn't. They have since discovered, you know, some, but mainly they were done on magazines or whatever. But he didn't quote unquote draw like you have drawn. He just went directly into the canvas. I mean, and just, again, every day.
He had passion, though, you could tell it, and I love the passion. That's what I try to show in my work anyway, so. What,
I have a question. I was lucky enough to stand next to Michael at PAAM for a couple of years anyway for figure drawing. But we always did a single image on a board or a page. And all of your things are multiple forms of people. I wonder, when you teach, do you ever bring the second, third, or fourth person into the... I've never really thought about doing something like this. It's just not, I mean, it's beautiful. The woman at the end is just spectacular as a single piece, but you introduce multiple forms, which might be bodies, but I've never thought about doing it myself, and I just wondered if you have a...
I've never certainly brought that in with the workshop that I've given. That's a good point. That's an interesting point. What we've done is, today, as a matter of fact, there was a person who was drawing, and I don't necessarily encourage a person to draw smack in the middle. I mean, there's this constant composition, can be on the left or the right or whatever. But sometimes when they've taken me literally, and when they draw on the right or something, and there's a big space on the left, and it's not really balanced, and so I'm saying, well, let's add another figure there. Let's have a dialogue. What happens with the? And as a matter of fact, in a couple of instances, it was really, and they've done that with the same model, only facing another direction. They've moved their easel over, and it was fun to see that there was a kind of they worked together with this. So it became, in a way, frankly, it became a painting, or the basis of what could become a painting. And it was, I'd like that, but I've never really pushed it. I've never thought about that. That's a good point, Paul.
I think next time I go to figure, I'm going to see, I'm just going to change I'm just going to see what happens with introducing another body into the...
That's true.
Because I always like to draw big.
Yes, I know, yeah.
I don't understand people who just sit with a little sketchbook and draw.
That's right.
I don't understand that, but, and the other question I have is that I know you show at Schoolhouse.
Yeah.
And you teach and you're here. Who's seeing you these days? Do you get out and does your work get out to other areas like New York, or do you try?
I wish. No, I don't.
You said that you're not interested in selling or whatever. But
Well, no, I'm interested if it happens, but I mean, that's not my raison d'etre. That's not the reason why I'm doing the work. I just want to do the work as much as possible. And if people like it and want to buy it, great, fine, I'm happy, delighted. But
It's a whole nother business.
yeah, that's right, and I'm not into that.
Michael does have a website, michaelprodanou.com, and I have found that websites can be very useful, and I suggested that let some galleries in New York know that he has this website. All you have to do is you can send an email out, and there it is, and then they can take it or leave it. So, but I'm not sure if he wants to do that, if he's ready, and I don't.
Well, there are the multiple avenues for all of
suppose,
them, that's
yeah.
for sure, but it takes work.
That's right.
It's the business of the stuff.
That's another
Yeah,
business.
it's another business.
I paint and I draw. I don't care about that.
Yeah.
Let somebody else do it.
Well, it's one of the things that we probably haven't touched on, and then maybe it's another minefield, but the psychology of all these kind of tumultuous,
Right.
roiling, tumbling figures, and the kind of almost chaos that they're engaged in. I mean, are you thinking of that? Are you bringing the kind of contextual or content type of thought into, what you're doing when you're dealing with the figure, when you're drawing and when you're painting? Are you just trying to, are you exploding it and moving it for a particular point, for a particular emotional reason? Is there any of that happening, or has it come completely out of your process?
No, I think at one point, a series of paintings came out, some of these emotion paintings came out of when all the Syrian refugees were coming to Greece. And I did a big drawing of that, we call it Aegean Crisis. And that worked, and out of that, it came some of these paintings with the emotions. At the same time, we saw down at the Onassis Center in New York sculptures, ancient sculptures, and it was all based on emotions. And and it was beautiful, it was wonderful work. And it was in the back of my mind. So at the same time, it was a combination of the Syrian refugees landing in Greece on the island of Lesbos, and the issues that they had to go through, the dying and the drowning and all that kind of stuff. And I thought, so that's where some of these came, and it was really sparked by the show that I saw, of course it was nice, in New York at the Onassis Center, of the emotions. And that was one chunk of time and period, but that was, otherwise I don't really know. I just, I don't know. I just make a lot of lines. I get on tiptoes and whatever, on my hands and knees, and I put a lot of lines on the paper and see where it happens. Part of it is you make a line or something and it leads you to something else, and then you smudge it, and then you get a lot of some water and it drips and things, and then you say this needs some color here, and then some of it's a disaster, but who cares? And you work on it. It works on itself. It has a life of its own in a kind of way,
It's you're building a building.
And that's probably, So,
in a certain way, I guess, right?
I guess, yeah.
I have a question. I think this gentleman also had a question. Go ahead, you go.
Thank you. Just a very quick one. You mentioned in the beginning I'm fascinated by this, and I think you said that you used the word lonely in connection with the first panel.
I guess it started off as two figures, and I didn't know what they were doing. Were they talking or something? And I guess I wasn't so sure. And then as it developed and it faded and everything, I suddenly thought, gee, that's I'm not so sure if it was lonely, but certainly it became a kind of that is called memory. And I think as it progresses, it gets fainter and fainter, and so it's kind of maybe did I say lonely? I don't remember that.
Nimi.
Yeah.
Michael's used some Greek words to name some of his paintings. Nimi is memory, agape is love, Chronos is pain.
But anyway, so that's...
And because, of course, all the Greek
Does that answer
history.
It does. I don't want to make you put words on things which are really action, but I was very moved by this. And then Bert Yarborough gave this fabulous description of I can't reproduce it, but of the sort of chaos and the rolling bodies and the embracing, and all of which suddenly happens. This looks to me like, I'm thinking of the Edgar Degas thing in your catalog. Art is not what you see, but what you make others see. And you made me see the figure on the left seemed to me hurt, and the figure on the right is comforting him. It's as if they've had a dispute, and there's something very tender about it. And then, even though the second piece completely is coherent with the first one, there's all of a sudden then this tumult of many bodies together in embraces, and the complete opposite of loneliness or separation. I mean, it's just wild what goes on there. So that's why I asked you what the I heard lonely, it might have been a different word, but
Okay. I don't know, but I'm glad you
That's
felt that.
well, that's
I love
excellent,
it.
yeah.
I love it.
The nice thing about these big bricks is you can roll them up the tube, you know, and you can, it's not like big canvases and things. They're very transportable, and so some of these, he was doing things in Florida, you know, that we could just roll up and bring back, and now we've finished in Florida.
You had-
But,
I know you traveled to London, to Greece. Do you get inspiration when you travel, or you do like small sketches?
No, I don't, I've never done, I've never had.
And bring them back?
No, I never have done that, yeah. There's something.
You're not a sketchbook person.
No, I'm not. I know architects did. I thought, gosh, you know, I just bought postcards. I've got tons of postcards. I've got boxes.
Do you get inspiration from those?
No. Yeah, I mean, people were drawing all these, you know, cathedral. Hey, buy postcards, it's cheaper, you know. I was not one of those, unfortunately. Anyway, I was more interested, frankly, in people, the cafes and the people outside, the way they were dressing. And
But you've never had the desire to sketch in the cafe or any of that kind of stuff?
No, drink.
Champagne?
Watch people. I love watching people. It's great.
Excellent, excellent.
But
I think our work here is done. Thank you, Michael.
thank you very
for
much,
this
Bert.
great work.
Thank you very much for coming, everybody.